And this is the state of yoga. So from here, we understand that we need to find in everybody's Purusha, every individual brain, because we're doing this for the planet. We're not doing it for us. We're doing it for the planet. Every Purusha, every individual has a quality and a characteristic that follows this. This is universal. So we're going to transcend. To do that, we have a mind, like the ocean, coming out of the self, Atma, and thoughts bubble up all day. Right now, you're looking at my hand, watching the screen, thoughts are bubbling up. They don't come from staples, they come from inside you, okay? So, they keep coming up. If you were to trace back, all right, Dhara and Dhyan, if you trace back in an effortless way, it is possible for the mind to settle back on a given thought. Very easily, very spontaneously create and experience a fourth state of consciousness. Not waking, not dreaming, not sleeping, Turiya Chetana, okay? This is that samadhi. This is that yoga that was defined in the Yoga Sutras. The complete settling of the mind. This is the transcending process, and this is basically what is utilized in the technique of transcendental meditation. Some of you have heard about it or know about it. So transcending to samadhi, it's a very simple thing. It's easy. It's been shown all over the world for the last half a century. Anybody can do it. Anybody can transcend to samadhi. And it's not hard, it's effortless. In fact, if you use effort, it's nearly impossible. It's also natural, it's part of the system. That's why everybody can do it. There's no concentrated kneading, and there's no control. You can't get simpler than this. It's just the settling of the mind. It's not the control, it's not a manipulation. So in TM, all we have is what happened there? We have a mantra, and we go in. And what happens is that when the mind goes in, the brain has to cooperate. There's a relationship. So the brain also gets a chance to settle down. And when it settles down, it has that direct experience of the underlying field, Atma, okay? Unified field in physics. This is aligning your brain with order. It's taking to the field of all unification of all natural law. So this is living yoga. So to do that, let's talk about how the brain can do that. How can the brain accomplish this settling process? How is it possible that anybody, as long as they can think a thought, which is most people, they can do this? It's a natural component to the brain. And here is your brain. This is from 100 years ago. You never knew your brain had all these colors and little dots and dashes, but you used to draw that when you were a kid, right? So they're there. But there's diversity, okay? And that means this diversity represents a huge range of intelligence. Every one of these cells, and there's 20 billion here and 100 billion in the brain, every one of these cells has a different job. One job is to know your mother. One job is to know Modi, G, okay? So there's levels of unification. Another is to bring connectivity. We start with a genomic network. The genes are organized to create a metabolic network, the cells and all the activity, which in turn creates a whole structure, your brain. And there's all these fiber networks in your brain. You may not want to know it, but your brain is primarily spaghetti, all right? It's just noodles with a couple computers stuck on top. Okay. So here's your brain. And if you haven't seen it before, it's very beautiful. Here's your prefrontal cortex, the very front. Not good to hit with soccer balls. Here's the side here. This is where you create your objects, temporal lobes and so forth. The back, vision. Here's your motor. Here's your skin. And this is where you create your world. So you could have thousands of areas of your brain, or you could have two. You can have the front, you, and the back, the world. It's really that simple. The front is you, the back is the world, and you have wires that connect you and the world. You have wires that connect billions of cells to create the thought you're having right now. That thought gets created. It's not on some chip somewhere. You're creating it out of the self. And here are those wires. Just a few of them, because there's too many to show here. Here a diagram of wires. Here's the front of your brain, the side. Here's coming in and out from the body and so forth, temporal lobes. These wires are the connecting points between all the diversity of your brain. There's probably a quantum mechanical reason too, but let's stay with the simple spaghetti, okay? The wires work. We understand the wires. And here are the wires, based on all the cortical regions And here are the key focal points. All right. There's 180,000, that's 180,000 kilometers of wires in your brain, in your cortex. All right. That's like 5.5 times around the Earth. That makes your thoughts. That creates all the connection there, your unification. So we're going to unify through networks. There's other reasons, but networks work because it's been found that these cortical association fibers are related to this principle of unity. And in modern science, it's called communication through coherence. That means if you have a group of people together, the communication depends upon the people paying attention to each other. All right? If the speaker is not paying attention to you and you're not paying attention to the speaker, there's no communication. That means you have to be in sync. You have to be correlated. You have to be attending. Coherence. We're going to see the coherence relates to samadhi, relates to yoga. Union, coherence, correlation. It's all the same. So, you might know Dr. Tony Nader, MD, PhD, wrote a book a while back where he correlated the Yoga Sutras with the intelligence of the cortical association fibers. All those wires we were looking at, those aren't just spaghetti. Those are the intelligence of the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras have a meaning of the sutra, okay? But they also have the sound meaning of the sutra, the intelligence embedded in there. If you take the 4 chapters, samadhi and so forth, these 4 chapters correlate to different parts of the brain. So you can have 1,000 parts of the brain or 4 parts of the brain, however you want to dissect it and organize it. But each one of these padas have to do with a specific territory of the human brain. And in particular, there's a one-to-one correspondence. For every sutra, there's a cortical area, which means this sutra, the 31st, in this chapter, chapter 4, it means the intelligence of this part of your brain is connected by all those fibers connected to the rest of the brain. So this part of the brain is connected to the whole rest of the brain. This part of the brain is connected to the whole rest of the brain. This is connecting diversity with unity, connecting the part to the whole, bringing everybody together at each moment so you have the best possible thinking. A one-to-one correspondence, and that's unification through the neural networks. So in the brain, we can look at the EEG, which is a measure of connectivity, how things are working together. And if we use it, this is down in Tirupati, we're doing some research there, you can document the samadhi. These students, they start meditating, within an hour or less, they're already in samadhi. And then over time, you can see the brain waves. We'll show you that in a moment. So for example, here's 2 brain waves in the front of the brain and the back of the brain. Very dynamic, very diverse. If you start with TM, something happens. The diversity, the complexity, within a second or less becomes simple. You go into a very simple, unified state represented by these brain waves, which we don't have to go into any great detail, but we're going to show you that if you look at all the brain, and this is some of the work Fred and I have done, you can see the whole brain gets coordinated very quickly. And we're going to show this in a moment in the live thing. Here's EEG, and here is the coherence. This is your level of correlation from minimum to maximum. All right, a little bit, a lot. And you see how it goes up and down? That's how life goes. You get something, you get rid of it. You get something, you get rid of it. You get your car keys, you forget about them, now you're in your car. You forget about your dog. You have to come and go, okay? Things come and go, and then you start meditating, and all you do is just come. You just move into that samadhi state, and it becomes sustained, high levels of coherence. This is just the front of the brain. If you want to look at the rest of the brain, the person starts meditating here, and you can see the whole thing becomes almost instantaneously settled, high levels of coherence that are sustained. And of course, there's fluctuations in almost everybody's meditation. If you were to clap your hands or hear a car go by or a dog bark, then there's going to be a little tension go out, and then you go right back into the self. So samadhi is very flexible. In fact, these excursions probably relate to different things. We can also relate that there's other frequencies besides just alpha, which we were looking at. You have faster frequencies and even faster frequencies, which correspond to different aspects of experience. And what we find in meditation, here's a baseline. If you look at a couple years later, see the difference? The brain becomes completely coherent across all the dynamic rhythms of the brain. Okay? So, And for that, a half a century of research shows that when that happens, when somebody just very effortlessly settles into samadhi, the body and the brain gets very orderly, very healthy, very dynamic. And as a result, to summarize without showing you a lot of research slides, if you have that coherence, that samadhi, you're going to be more creative. You're going to be more moral. You're going to have more inner orientation, enlightenment, less anxiety. You're going to learn better, more aware. You're going to run and jump, compute, intelligence, and so forth. This is just a little bit of the half a century of research showing that samadhi, as been brought out by the speakers, is a way to improve the quality of everybody's brain and mind very simply and very quickly. So, with that, let me summarize that when you transcend, when you let the mind settle down through this effortless technique, samadhi is there. When the samadhi is there, the brain is in this very powerful state of orderliness, more orderly than any other state found in medical science. It's better in waking, dreaming, sleeping. It's that fourth state, Turiya Chetana. When you have that, the brain potential is now released. All right. And you're going to hear later on from some of the doctors that when they do transcend, so many problems can be eradicated very easily. And then finally, how about just being healthy, happy, successful, and the growth to Kaivalya? This is what's going to happen in the next presentation, but right now I'm going to invite Dr. Karen Oyoki to come up, and I'm going to show you quickly what her brain waves look like. Here's a screen showing 2 leads of the EEG in the front of the brain. And then below that is the coherence. Remember, it's from minimum to maximum. All right, so this is brain coherence. It goes up and down because she's listening to me and she's watching you and so forth like that. So if we ask her to start meditating. You notice what happened? As soon as I asked her to meditate, you could see the change. That each part of the brain, and here we're looking at 2, you could look at 200, but each part of the brain became more orderly individually. And then this one shows how this side and this side became more orderly. You can almost see how similar these traces look. This is just a very accurate demonstration of what you see up here. That quickly, she settled down. That's 10 or 15? 15, okay. Settled down and then continued on in a very high level of coherence. This is the simple practice of transcending, transcendental meditation, which allows an individual to experience that inner value.
Aging process.
Yes, the aging process.
Aging process.
Yes.
Can they be reversed?
Yes. This is the opposite of the aging process.
Right.
Aging is a progressive disconnection.
Yes. Right.
It's a progressive loss of yoga.
Right.
That's all aging is. Mm-hmm. It's non-yoga. Okay?
Right. Right.
And it's been shown for the last 40, 50 years that the wires in your brain, they don't
Right.
do so well. The cells don't do so well.
Right.
So what happens, you disconnect the system.
Right.
It's not the junk in the brain. We don't like junk in the brain, but you can live to 90 years old and have all the junk you want in the brain and still play cards and know your friends. So the junk is not good. But what we want is coherence and orderliness of brain functioning.
Right.
That's how people who have more education and more exercise and stuff like that, even if they have plaque and other things in the brain, they have enough connection to be able to compensate for that growing sort of garbage in the brain, which you don't want it. So yes, to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia, and it's been shown now at UCLA that TM is probably the single most effective tool to preventing or even reversing, in some cases, Alzheimer's. So it's a very powerful system. I mean, India has Alzheimer's and diabetes, cardiovascular. It's got a lot of things, and it has a tradition. All you do is put them together, right? Yoga and the source of yoga. If you have pain, they did a research study about 15 years ago that shows that there's 2 parts of pain, and they can be dissociated. There's the damage here, and the brain knows about it,
Yeah, no,
and there's actual pain. But then there's the subjective tendency of suffering from the pain.
Okay.
Oh my God, the pain's gone. This is what happens a lot with back pain. The back gets healed, but they still have that emotional vritti goes on, and they keep thinking, oh, my back is pain, my back is pain. What they've shown is with transcendental meditation is that the reality of the pain is still interpreted correctly by the brain.
Fine.
It still knows that you got your hand in a pot of hot water, okay?
Okay.
It's just not nice, right? Not boiling hot, okay? But the brain doesn't light up. It's not like, oh my God, my hand is in a pot of hot water. It's just my hand's in a pot of hot water.
Brain, what effects on the brain when one
Like say
person
asanas?
Yeah.
Is there effect of asanas on the brain?
On the of the meditation?
Well, we know asanas can affect the brain. When people
Okay.
do asanas, they did this almost 20 years ago in Denmark. They showed that the brain gets into a more relaxed state. How many billions of people in the world are there? It's that simple.
The major